Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello, good evening everyone. It's good to see regulars tuning in, and welcome to anyone who hasn't been here before. This is a Wednesday evening with the Clear Mountain Monastery community. And for anyone who can see the title of this talk, today is a Buddhist holiday. Today's a Buddhist holiday. So happy what? Happy Māgha Pūjā. Happy Māgha Pūjā. In Thailand, this is called Sangha Day. Sangha Day. So the full moon of the month of Māgha, which was the third month of the lunar year according to the Indian calendar, usually celebrated in the full moon in February. It was a day in the lifetime of the Buddha, actually the year after he attained enlightenment. There was a spontaneous gathering of 1,250 arahant monks, so people who were totally liberated, who no longer had any greed, they no longer had any hatred, no longer had any delusion. These are fully enlightened people, just spontaneously gathered with no one called the meeting. This is the story. 1,250 of these people came together, and the Buddha gave a talk, which has been called the Ovāda-Pāṭimokkha. Patimokkha can be translated as the entrance to the training, and the Ovāda is like a teaching or an exhortation, which is the Patimokkha. So the exhortation, which is the in the foremost, in the forefront. So this evening, as a Buddhist holiday, and specifically this very meaningful one. So I mentioned it was the Sangha Day in Thailand. And again, I don't believe that in all Southeast Asian countries, Burma and Sri Lanka, I don't believe they do what's done in Thailand, but in Thailand, the Thai culture that I'm most familiar with, they've got three main Buddhist holidays, three main Buddhist holy days. So you've got Buddha Day, which is the full moon of May, Visakha Puja, which celebrates, apparently the Buddha was born in the full moon of May. He attained enlightenment during the full moon of May. I believe it was 35 years after his birth. And then he passed away on the full moon of May as well. So that's Visakha Puja, Buddha Day. Then you have Dhamma Day, which is Asalaha Puja, which is the full moon of July. And that celebrates the time when the Buddha gave his first teaching to 5 ascetics, to basically his 5 buddy monks, from before they were his buddies, before he before he became the Buddha. So that is Dhamma Day, and then we've got Sangha Day, which is today, which is Māgha Pūjā. And what happens on a Buddhist holiday? Well, typically people will come to a monastery, and often, in a traditional Buddhist culture, the life could, to some degree, revolve around the lunar cycle. And in a small village, it wasn't a big thing to take the day off of farming and come to the monastery, spend the day at the monastery, and perhaps keep the 8 precepts. So not eating after noon, meditating, chanting. So these days, that still happens. It's just perhaps people who aren't able to take the day off will perhaps come to the monastery in the evening or listen to Dhamma talks. Another thing that happens is oftentimes circumambulation. So you walk around a Buddha statue or a temple. This is usually done in a big long line. People have candles, incense, and flowers, other symbols of the triple gem. And we'll often do chanting. And one particular chant which features heavily on this day, Māgha Pūjā, is this Ovāda-Pāṭimokkha. So I will chant the version, one of the versions, which exists in the Amaravati chanting book. And I'll put the words up on the screen so people can follow along if you are so inclined. And whether you're inclined or not, these teachings, so this Ovāda-Pāṭimokkha really is, it's the heart. It can be considered the heart of the Buddhist teaching in the sense of it's the essence of the Buddhist teachings. It takes the teachings on sila, samadhi, panya, on virtue, on concentration or mental collectedness, and wisdom, and it just packs them into 3 verses, which are just super filled with, charged with this, this import. So, given that it's the heart of the teachings, you can experiment with bringing your attention to the heart base, what's called in perhaps yogic circles the heart chakra. And yeah, we can chant, people who are so inclined. We'll do the Pali and English. Sabba papa sakaranang, not doing any evil. Kusala supasampada, to be committed to the good. Sachita pariyodapanang, to purify one's mind. Etam buddhana sasanang, these are the teachings of all Buddhas. Kanti paramang tapotitikha, patient endurance is the highest practice, burning out defilements. Nibbanam paramang vadanti buddha, the Buddhas say Nibbana is supreme. Nahipa bhajito Parupagati, not a renunciant is one who injures others. Samano hoti parang vihetayanto, whoever troubles others can't be called a monk. Anupagato, Anupagato, not to insult and not to injure. Patimokkha sangvaro, to live restrained by training rules. Matanyuta jabhatasming, knowing one's measure at the meal. Pantancha sayanasanang, retreating to a lonely place. Adhicite chahayogo, devotion to the higher mind. Etam buddhana sasanang, these are the teachings of all Buddhas. So there you have it. That was 3 verses. And again, this was a teaching which the Buddha gave to already enlightened beings. He gave this to arahants. So these are people who no longer have any defilement in their own hearts. And I've heard some teachers speculate that what this teaching is, at least for an arahant, would be perhaps, a summary. This is the essence. These are like the cliff notes you could think of for his teaching, and hence for their teaching. So after the Buddha had a certain number of disciples, after his first rains retreat, it's actually before he taught this Ovāda-Pāṭimokkha, before Māgha Pūjā, he had 60 disciples, and he taught them all. He said, go out for the benefit of the many and teach the Dhamma. No two go in the same direction. So the speculation is that this is a teaching which these arahants could memorize and then take as notes to then teach themselves and make sure they're teaching the whole scope of his own teaching, of the Buddha's teaching, and what they themselves had realized, but perhaps might not be able to elucidate as clearly and succinctly as the Buddha has done. So we'll just look at each of these lines because there's a lot in them, and we can look at both the Pali and the English to get a better sense of some of these really important words. So the first line, sabba papasa akaranang, not doing any evil. So here we have some perhaps words which people might be surprised to see. So evil, does Buddhism teach evil? I thought I, stopped being Christian so I didn't have to think about evil. Fair enough. Again, evil is an English word, which this is a Judeo-Christian culture, and there are Judeo-Christian connotations built into that word for most people who grow up speaking English. The Pali word doesn't have it doesn't have the unhealthy connotations that the English word evil has, but it still is quite a strong word. It's that which you could think of, it debases the heart. So their mind states, you could talk about papa chitta, or papa is the word, so evil. It sounds nice and friendly, like Papa Smurf or something, but that's not the connotations in Pali. So a debased heart, papa chitta, or papa chetana, which are debased intentions. And basically it's the mind states coming from greed, anger, and delusion. That's a good list of 3 to memorize, because that's what we're working to cleanse the mind of. And akaranang, this kar, is the same kar from karma, or action. So basically not doing karma, not doing actions of evil. So non-doing evil, sabba, all. Kusala supasampada. So upasampada has 2 meanings. One of them means to engage. Here we have to be committed to. Upasampada is also the word for a monk's ordination ceremony. So upa is a prefix meaning going towards, sung with, pad is movement towards. So this is a movement which is toward, in the case of ordination, of upasampada in that sense, it's a movement towards the holy life, a movement towards our highest ideals. And here it's to be committed to what is kusala, what is wholesome, what is skillful, what is nuanced and bright, really. Again, many of these words, especially kusala, papa, in one sense, in a very big sense, Theravada Buddhism is quite a dualistic teaching. One might be able to speculate on whether or not Nibbāna is dual or non-dual. The Buddha didn't use the word Advaita. Advaita is the Sanskrit word which, Advaita Vedanta, it means literally not, divai, two, dvi, non-dual. The Buddha didn't use this word in the Pali Canon, and much of his teachings really do come in this form of practical teachings, ethical teachings, many of them. So you've got kusala and akusala, that which is wholesome and unwholesome. And it's an important distinction to make in terms of what we're actually going to do. In terms of a perhaps non-dual experience of consciousness, just a knowing which seems to not have an object and subject, that can be a felt sense, but the Buddha didn't, in the Theravada Pali context, didn't emphasize that. So we've got here kusala. This is what we're aiming for. We're aiming towards the bright. Sachita pariyodapanang, to purify one's mind. So chitta is the mind, sa, one's own, sachita, one's own mind, pariyodapanang. Da here is the root to mean to cleanse, literally to wash. So unfortunately, brainwashing has bad connotations in English. And again, that's not what we're here for. Again, I didn't make you guys come. So, but again, yeah, purifying. I mean, people like taking showers, yeah? I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could just flush away all the gunk and filth that we've been accumulating over lifetimes in the mind? I mean, so this is the purifying, the cleansing, the washing of one's own mind. Etang buddhana sasanang. So sasana, the teachings, or this is oftentimes translated as the religion. So, but again, religion is a Western concept which is not fully in line with what the Buddhist Pali word sasana means. Sas literally just means to teach. Sas is a root meaning to teach. So the sasanam is the Buddha's teaching or dispensation. Religion has connotations of belief, a belief structure, whereas the Buddhist teachings are one of education. And here is something interesting. So you'll see that the English, there are teachings of all Buddhas. You might be like, what? All Buddhas? I thought there was just one Buddha. If you're used to a Pali context, if you're used to Mahayana, you're like, oh yeah, of course there's lots of Buddhas, because in Mahayana, there are infinite Buddhas in all over the place. They're everywhere. They're in every, call it a dust mote. So a mote of dust is what you see in the sun coming down, and that's a dust mote. And there are infinite Buddhas in every dust mote, according to certain Mahayana teachings. But here and elsewhere, we do have the Buddha referring to all Buddhas. And he does teach about, in certain contexts, again, this is not, the Buddhist teachings are not one of belief. This is not a big thing you have to, like if you don't believe in past Buddhas, then you're not a Buddhist. It's nothing like that. But he does mention at least 8, if not 24 or so, 16 previous Buddhas in different discourses, but it's very few and far between that you see these references in the Pali Canon. One way which you can interpret it here as just a device for, one, it's humble. So like, it's not, these are the teachings of me, it's the teachings of all Buddhas. So the word all isn't there, but Buddha is plural here. So this is the teaching of anyone who is awake. So whether it's me or someone in the past or multiple people in the past or people in the future, anyone who is fully awakened, which is the meaning of Buddha, will teach like this. The next line, Kanti paramang tapo titikha. So Kanti and titikha are near synonyms, and they both mean patience or endurance or the ability of the mind to refrain from doing that which is unwholesome, the ability to check the mind, Kanti. And it's said that this ability to entai, to otton, to endure, to be able to sit through what's difficult. This is called the paramang, the highest, the paramount, tapa. And a tapa is a word, many of these words were just common words from the culture and the language which the Buddha inherited. You find these words in many of them in the Vedas or the other earlier strata of Indian Sanskrit teachings. You find the Sanskrit equivalent of these, and especially tapa. And in a Hindu context or a Vedic context, tapas are, it's like ascetic heat or energy. Here we have practices burning out defilements, and literally tap means to burn or to heat. So we've got tapas are what the ascetics, all those like naked guys or the people with dreadlocks and, marks, and things like that, and sticks. Those are ascetic practices, which was the belief in that system that just by doing these things which are difficult, you're bringing about purity. But the Buddha co-opted the term or appropriated the term for his own context. So in a Buddhist context, it's not about what we do externally, how much, bindis or facial hair or dreadlocks, how many dreadlocks we have. It's about the inner heat, the inner practice. Basically, this is pointing to the aspect of effort in the Buddhist teachings, which there's much of. So Kanti and titikha, patience, endurance. This is the highest, the highest practice, the highest ascetic practice. And it said that many of the people who would have been listening to the Buddha at this time would have been fire worshippers. So he had converted a group of, I think it was about 1,200 disciples of the Kassapa brothers, who were all practicing worshiping fire in different ways. So they would have all been very used to this idea of tapas. Nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha. Buddha, again plural. The Buddhas, vadanti, they say that Nibbāna is paramang, is supreme, is paramount. All the Buddhas say that Nibbāna is paramount. And what is Nibbāna? If you've seen translations from the late 1800s, you might say extinction. So you might be thinking, okay, like what happened to the dinosaurs? No. Nibbāna is, it's the highest happiness. Many places the Buddha didn't try to explain the unexplainable, but did give similes for and describe features of Nibbāna which are possible to talk about. Total lack of, total non-expression of, non-having, absence of greed, anger, and delusion. It's the highest happiness. It's the highest peace. It's the supreme goal of the holy life. And that's supreme. And so if your attention is still at your heart, bring that into your heart. This is what we want to aim at. And to the extent that we can, we want all of our actions every day, all the time, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, aiming in this direction, taking Nibbāna into the heart, realizing that that's supreme. Nahi pabbajito Parupagati, not a renunciate, is one who injures others. So a pabbajita is literally one who has gone forth. So you might be thinking, what does this have to do with me? I'm not a renunciate. I've got my computer, I've got my YouTube, and I'm not a monk. And but if you are a seeker, I think this might be, again, pabbajita is another name for a monk, someone who's had the going forth ceremony. But you can think about it. If you're serious about your practice, then then you are a seeker. You're someone who's gone forth. And the Buddha says here, seekers, serious seekers, don't injure others. And as you practice on this path, you realize that injury is so easy. It's so easy to hurt other people. And we need to realize how our intentions do that and to become more skillful with them. So next line, samano hoti parang vihetayanto. So again, whoever troubles can't be called a monk. What they're translating monk here is a samana, which is actually the root of the English shaman. Yeah. So a shaman doesn't hurt other people, doesn't trouble other people. And again, you might be saying, yeah, I'm not a monk and I'm definitely not a shaman. But again, the root of this, again, it's debated, but one speculation is that it comes from some of like calming. So this is someone who's calm, someone who's peaceful, someone who's inclining towards pacification, who's inclining towards peace of mind and peace in the world. Anupavato, Anupagato, not to insult and not to injure. Again, now we're starting on a list of 6 factors, which you'll see the little semicolon at the end of this line. That indicates that all of these will be said, teaser, at the end, etang buddhana sasanang, these are the teachings of all Buddhas. But that was just a sneak peek. So anupavato, vad is to speak, upa is to get close. So this is like to get all up in somebody's face, not. So you're not getting all up in somebody's face, or you're not insulting, you're not being rude to other people. And again, the longer you practice, you realize your sense of other people's sensitivities becomes heightened, and your conduct can become more beautiful and not to injure. Patimokkha cha sangvaro. Var is like to tie up, sang to tie up with, Samvara is restraint. So that wholesome word, the wholesome type of restraint, that which holds us back from the things which would be detrimental for us and others, the things which would be harmful. And Patimokkha, again, he was, in this context, teaching monks, but the word literally means that which goes towards liberation is one interpretation. Moksha, liberation, that which goes towards liberation, that which is the foremost. But it does entail like a discipline. So the Patimokkha for monks is our 227 training rules that we recite every 2 weeks. That's what the Patimokkha is, and that's the most common use of the word. But here it's, at this time, again, the first year after he starts teaching to all these arhants, there was no Patimokkha in the form of 227 rules yet. The Buddha laid down those rules as need arised, as like, corrupt and debased and debauched, and all these shady monks start doing like shady things, and the Buddha had to lay down rules as situations arose. He didn't just bang, 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 bang. They like list them all out from the beginning. So here it was just principles, rules, which incline towards, move towards liberation. So live restrained by these training rules. Matanyuta cha batasming. Mata is the measure, mu is to know, and ta is a state of. So a state of knowing the measure, batasming, with regard to food. So we had a talk late last year about these different forms of intelligence, and one of them was matanyu, which was quantitative intelligence. So knowing the right amount, knowing the right quantity of things. And here the Buddha is highlighting knowing the right amount of food. And again, I'm going to guess that it's the minority of, I won't just highlight YouTube watchers, but certainly the minority of Americans, if not humans, who have this under, are good at, fully satisfied with their knowing the right amount with regards to food. It's something which you can see very clearly when you go on retreat, especially a long retreat, and especially if you're keeping 8 precepts, not eating afternoon. That one meal or those 2 meals have an abundant and oversized effect on your meditation. If you have to sit down with your stomach and your mind after you've just filled it up too much, if you filled it up too much, then you feel it in your mind. It's the sluggishness, the fullness. And so, this is a very good thing for us always to be paying attention to. In another discourse, the Buddha said, practitioners, you should train yourselves thus, reflecting again and again, I will be one who knows moderation in eating. So this is not something which we get down and then we're done with. You do this again and again as you're eating with every bite. Okay, is this enough? Is this the right amount? And again, not in a anxious way, but you can do it in a spacious way. Okay, is this enough? I want the best for myself, so don't want to eat too much. And again, also don't want to eat too little. Pantancha sayanasanang. Pantang is a isolated dwelling, so retreating to a lonely place. Lonely, Buddha isn't suggesting we be lonely, but getting to a place where you can get away and have some space from others. If you're in a city, if you live with others, seeing if you can designate a particular room or part of a room to be where you meditate. Sayana, your bedding, where you sleep, and asana, where you sit. So sitting and lying down in secluded places. And here's the next very, very important point, which hopefully all of us have been practicing as we listen to this. But adicite cha ayogo. Yoga, so you see, people know this word yoga, so this is yoked. It's cognate with the English word yoked. So you're yoked with adichitta. So adi is the higher chitta, mind. You're yoked to the higher mind. You're constantly paying attention. Okay, am I cultivating unwholesome or wholesome mental states and bright mental states or darkish mental states? And you want to be devoted to, you want to be yoked to, and really yoked to. That's what that long A there implies. Or you want to be really yoked to the heightened mind. So then the Buddha sums up, Etam Buddhana Sasanang. These are the teachings of all Buddhas. So that's the Ovāda-Pāṭimokkha. And I hope people were able to stay with the heart as you're listening and really bring them into your heart, bring these principles, find ways, whether it's a mantra or other ways. There are monks who will chant this, just these verses in Pali, probably Pali and English, a certain number of times, especially on a day like this. I've done that myself. You recite, however many times, 108 times. And just when you recite something over and over again, it's not something which is popular in America, but you are it's like you got a really soft hammer that you're banging into your chest. Not a good metaphor, but hopefully you get the point. All right. So yeah, now we'll open it up to questions. And if anyone has any thoughts, you can feel free to post them in the chat box. And it's good to be looking at this together. Okay, so we've got this question. Can you repeat the story about how this holiday came to be? Sure. Yeah, this was in the Buddha attained enlightenment in May, and then he gave his first teaching. He spent maybe 7 or 8 weeks just under the tree, the Bodhi tree, kind of figuring out how he was going to be teaching. And then after 2 months, he walked to where he knew his 5 practitioner friends would be, and he gave his first teaching to them, and they, by stages, became enlightened. And then the following February, the Buddha had been gaining disciples. People have been becoming more and more inspired. In that period of time, the Buddha had met a group of 3 fire-worshipping ascetics, 3 brothers, the Kassapa brothers, who all lived on the banks of the Ganges River, I believe. And they all had big groups, 500 monks, 400 ascetics, 300 ascetics, and they all became enlightened at the fire sermon. And then the Buddha gave this discourse to 1,250 of these practitioners in the following February, to this group who just spontaneously gathered. And that's the backstory. Okay, is the divine feminine and masculine discussed in Buddhism? A friend asked, and my understanding is that it is not a concept discussed in Theravada Buddhism, perhaps more so in Tibetan traditions. Thank you very much for that question. You do have female and male divine beings. So the verb devata, deva and devata refer to male and female deities. So these are literally divine feminine and divine masculine, but it's not really a concept which is flushed out. The Buddha would oftentimes take existing words from the culture which he came from, the language which he used growing up and which people were familiar with, and reorient them, repurpose them in a way which would help his teaching cause. So the one word for celestial is dibba. Div means to enjoy, and dibba is one who enjoys, literally an angel, and it is cognate with the English word divine. So the Buddha would talk about, there are these divine beings, these deva, which is also cognate with the English divas. So like Whitney Houston is like an angel, and Christina Aguilera as well. They're divas, but devas is literally the bright ones. But the Buddha would take this term and say, the Buddha or an enlightened being is the highest deva, someone who has the vision of other realms, has vision of being able to see reality as it is. That's someone who has the divine eye. I'm kind of skirting around the question because it's not really fleshed out in Buddhism, this divine feminine, divine masculine. But of course, that's just in the earliest teachings. These teachings have been in lived cultures. They've been practiced for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And within individual cultures, you do see aspects of this. Like you'll often see a Buddha statue, which is somewhat androgynous. One of the characteristics of the Buddha, one of the 32 marks, is that he had a bust like a lion. So he has got this very, he's got a, as you see here, a bust like a lion, and his features are soft, and someone could call that feminine. And he's also got these traditionally masculine features. So, it's a good question, and actually I'll look into it more, because I think you're right about Tibetan. Certainly, I mean, they've got female Buddhas, like Tara is a female Buddha. So that's something which you don't find in the Pali tradition. But you do certainly find enlightened nuns and enlightened laymen. There's nothing gendered about enlightenment. Good question, thank you. What pace of life best supports meditation and daily life practice? Good question. And it will depend on the person. Something, again, mentioned these different types of intelligence, which the Buddha spoke of, and the Buddha did talk about kalanyuta, being one who knows, one who has a temporal intelligence, so one who has a sense of time. And really, people have different internal chronologies, different paces, and to some extent, you might be able to judge someone else, but really you can only judge yourself, whether you're going at about the right pace. An interesting thought is maybe analogous to typical Thai forest tradition, teachings on walking meditation. So in certain Burmese lineages, in the Mahasi lineage, walking meditation is very slow. You're walking and being aware of lifting, moving, placing, stepping, lifting, moving, like this. And in Zen circles at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, their walking meditation, it's straight running. I mean, I sat a Chan session with them, and they sit hard, sit without moving for 50 minutes, and then they have a 10-minute walking meditation. You start out going, at a fairly normal walking pace, and then somebody, I don't know who this guy was, but somebody hits like a wooden block, and then they say, run. And then people just you're running in this track around the meditation hall. And I don't know if that's a City of 10,000 Buddha special, or if it's just what. But the Thai Buddhist, Thai forest tradition Buddhist approach to walking meditation is walk slightly slower than is a normal pace. That way you can get used to bringing mindfulness into daily life. Because when you slow things down slightly, then you're at least having that much more intentionality to your walking. And I might say the same thing. You don't want to force yourself to be slower than is natural, because that unnaturalness will have it might have aversiveness built into it. But cool question, and I think the coolest part is just for each of us, who care about this, and to examine for yourself: am I going about at a good pace? As monks, one of our 227 Patimokkha rules is there's about 8 of them, which are specifically how monks move about in public. And some of those rules entail, I will move about restrained. Yeah, so I will move about well restrained. So you might be able to experiment with that. So I will move about well restrained. What does that mean? You can experiment. Happy Māgha Pūjā? Yes. All right. And we say, do monks in America celebrate traditional Western holidays like Independence Day, Halloween, and Christmas? So I think I can mostly only speak for the practice at Abhayagiri, which I think is somewhat similar to other forest monasteries, and say that not really. I mean, we still experience the day. We can't just like skip July 4th or skip Valentine's Day. It still happens on the calendar, but it's not really highlighted in the same way. Really, every day is seen as a day for practice. But that said, humans, of which monks are one subset, humans do like having variety to some extent, most people. And it's often the case that, for people who are of perhaps a less dour or a less strict or ascetic mentality as monks, come to monasteries. So a monastery isn't just a place for strict monks. It's a place for anybody that wants to come and practice generosity, virtue, meditation, practice the Buddhist teachings. And you've got lots of people that, for many holidays, you do have people coming and making perhaps a special dish. So like on Christmas, you do probably have more than the usual number of people come to the monastery and maybe make some kind of like traditional Christian or traditional Christmas meal, or on Thanksgiving, the same thing. Individual monks. Another question is about birthdays. Do monks celebrate birthdays? And again, it's kind of, I mean, on a philosophical level, you would say, I mean, for someone who's coming from a very heady space, you would say, no, I mean, monks, we're trying to put an end to birth. Why would you celebrate a birthday? But on a human level, again, it's just nice to, that someone would remember your birthday. So, that's one answer. So, kind of is the answer, I guess. Well, everyone, it looks like time is wrapping up. I'm going to put a link in the description for our Zoom meeting, which is going to come up next. So, and you can also find that on the Clear Mountain Monastery website. Just go to calendar, and every Wednesday after these YouTube teachings, we switch over to Zoom, and then it becomes more interactive. People can share their thoughts verbally and hear other people's thoughts. It's great. So feel free to join in there if you'd like. And if you're not so inclined, fair enough. And next teaching will be Saturday. Tanisabo has begun. Today is the first day of his 3-month retreat. So he won't be answering emails. And yeah, he'll be practicing a lot more formal practice and really just drawing back from various projects and things, and focusing more on kind of the heart of the holy life. So, but he will still be doing these Wednesday teachings from time to time. He'll be doing it next Wednesday, and he'll be continuing to come into St. Mark's on Saturdays. So feel free to join into any of those offerings, and wish everybody a really good evening. And I'll see those of you who come in the Zoom session. Okay, good night, everyone.